Hey now, and welcome to the Cardinals Stand Out in Your Career podcast, presented by Alumni Relations. I'm Nic Taylor, the Executive Director of Alumni Relations here at Saginaw Valley State University, and I'm really excited today. Our topic is all about first impressions, and I have brought an expert. I say an expert because she made such a good first impression on me. We'll talk about that a little later. But Lindsey Mead is an associate attorney for Foster, Swift, Collins, and Smith, PC. And she's currently an alumni board member, and she's actually the chair of our past committee, which is all about celebrating our alumni. So, Lindsey, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So, let's start broad,
Okay.
and we'll try to work our way in. You know, everybody talks about first impressions and what they are, and for you, I want you to try to define what a lasting first impression really means in a professional setting. And then maybe talk a little bit why you think it matters.
Okay. I think when I think about the term first impression, I mean, it's self-explanatory in that this is the first time someone you're meeting in your professional career is meeting you. But I think when I think about the essence of that or the importance of it, it's really about authenticity. It's about coming into that space exactly as yourself, but a polished version when we're talking about like a professional setting, and feeling like you're leaving that person with an accurate reflection of yourself too. Because I would personally not describe myself as an extrovert, and I think I find this compulsion to like make myself appear better than I am sometimes when I feel pigeonholed. So authenticity and genuineness is what I would really fixate on when it comes to defining that.
You know, I love that you say that, because that's the first thing I think of is we've seen bad first impressions, right?
Yeah.
Bad first impressions.
We've had them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. The guy with the bad joke, or
Yep.
or we always think about the accident that might happen, right?
Right.
Spilling something on yourself,
Right.
or have something on your shirt.
Yes.
I sometimes think that there's some opportunity in that as well, especially if it is accidental, because it's something memorable. I think you're right. Authentic and memorable helps anyone kind of lay the groundwork for a future professional relationship.
Right. How did you stand out amongst all the other people that person met that day? Yeah.
So, Lindsey, I got to tell you, the reason that we thought of you in this topic is, talking about your career. I know that, law really can be a high pressure environment, right?
100%, yeah.
I always think of, and I love the example of the gunner in law school, the person who sits in the front and raises their hand. We know who that is.
Traumatizing.
Right? Exactly.
Yes.
And that's a bad first impression
Yes.
to have. So I imagine in your career with your firm and you getting out there as a young woman, being an attorney, that, that first impression was really important. So when you started, what intentional steps did you kind of take to establish things like credibility, trust, those things?
I think, especially in a setting like a law firm, I am one amongst 100 attorneys there. And in Lansing, at least 50 plus people, whether it's attorneys or paralegals or support staff. And I'm this new person who on my first day got called kiddo in the elevator. And I'm like, I'm an attorney. I'm not a kid, but it's that way that I'm sure I presented myself to that person as someone who didn't know where she was going, small, didn't feel like I belonged in that space. And especially in my particular practice group, business and tax is not a very women-dominated space. Sure. So I think all of that led into me kind of framing myself pretty small. And I realized I was doing that with little interactions with people like that, where I maybe wasn't showing the actual like self-confidence I felt I did have. I thought I belonged there, so why was I not projecting that? So it started with me getting there a little earlier, not a morning person, than I typically would, and staying a little later. I didn't say no to projects that I actually could take on. I think I had a tendency to feel other people were better suited for some things, and a lot of my peers would get projects and go, oh, that's not my practice group, that's not my discipline, it's not something I want to do. And I thought, I'm not really in a space right now to be saying, I don't want to do something. I don't know what I want to do. I just got here, So I think being open to, as much as possible, not setting barriers, not saying no, not because I couldn't say no, but because I think it was worth trying something new, and stopping telling myself no first.
Sure.
I'm going to let other people tell me that, if it's not a good fit or if I'm not doing something right, I needed to stop telling myself that. And once that kind of shifted, I noticed the dependability and, reliability with my group really building.
It's really interesting to hear you say that because I have such a different experience. So just to kind of talk about my experience, I went to school at SVSU. I graduated in May. I won't say what year because that's the age. I graduated in a year, and then I walked across the stage and I started as an admissions rep like 2 weeks later.
Yeah.
And my first impression with almost everybody that I worked with was as a student.
Right.
And so, you were talking about, trying to almost making yourself small and that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
I remember very vividly thinking and having at the time to like kind of show like, yes, I was a student, absolutely,
Mm-hmm.
and that's when we met. But now I'm working here. I'm your peer. I'm
right.
working for the better of the organization, and when you said, small versus big, that kind of got me thinking about those first impressions of staying authentic to who you are, but then also showing a level of professionalism.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So, sometimes it's not just those big moments of standing up in a meeting and trying to maybe talk about what are some small things that we can do in a first impression setting that will start to give that professional atmosphere, that thought of, hey, I'm not the kid.
Yeah.
I'm not an intern. I'm not a student here for bringing your child to work day.
Right.
What are small things that you think can help someone out there trying to make that good first impression?
Yeah. I think something I have noticed, even when I'm meeting a new associate that's joining our group, like if I'm in the kind of judgment position as opposed to one being judged and vice versa, that not enough people are actively listening. Like, I think, especially when you're nervous.
As I write something down you're saying, just modeling. Sorry, no, go ahead.
No, but truly, like, I think when I'm nervous, I go in, I spew every probably too detailed description of myself, and I'm trying to, like, prove to others that this is why I'm in this space, by the way, or like, here's why you should know why I'm here. And I've noticed other people doing that. And I think instead when you actually pause, listen, and you're still permitted to speak as an active listener, but I think the conversation that flows when you're listening to an interview question, for example, instead of saying, oh no, that wasn't my canned anticipated response, to, how I got here in law school today question. Once you actually take a minute to sit in that and think about, why are they asking me this question? Or am I directly answering it? I find that the conversation that flows is far more authentic and then allows you to end up being more genuine, actually engaging in a conversation, because people can tell when something feels canned, and they can tell when they feel like you're following a script instead of listening. And I find that to be something that I've had to learn and curate in a professional setting. Because I think in my personal life, I love listening to my friends and sharing stories. But when I get in front of somebody that I'm trying to impress, you try to impress by speaking. And I think you can actually really do it by listening.
That's such a great point. And as soon as you said that, I went back and I thought of like 3 different examples of people that I work with where I had a first impression of them in their work life, and 2 bad and 1 great.
Yeah.
And it was exactly that. I won't use any names. Jeff Zuloff,
Please.
I know you're out there. Jeff.
I was going to say drop. I'm kidding.
Jeff's a good friend of mine. And I remember when he was hired, he was the guy who in the staff meeting was very quiet. And everybody kind of waited. And eventually they're like, well, Jeff, what do you think? And then as soon as Jeff spoke, it was the most profound, perfect, concise answer. And the reason I think that came to be is because he was listening to all of us, all the rest of us, talking, trying to prove our worth, right? And adding, or maybe not even adding. One of the bad examples is someone who would always basically just repeat what had already been said. And I'm
Fatal flaw.
I'm like, oh my gosh, please.
Repeating it, but slightly louder.
I think the advice there, though, is, especially in your career, trying to make a good first impression, you've already been hired.
Right.
They've seen your resume. They know who they hired. They know who you are. Now it's coming in and being a productive member of the team. And active listening
Right.
is a part of that. It's what will set you apart and make you a better teammate.
Yes.
Along
And
the way.
especially in a lawyer setting. Like, we are a group of people who all talk way too much and know too much about random niche things that no one cares to share. But the way a group flows and functions best is not just rambling and talking over each other, but pausing and listening and coming up with a plan. And I think that's all active listening.
You know, we've talked a lot about authenticity, and I think it brings the question of, okay, how much is too much authenticity? You know, people often wonder, how much of myself should I bring to work?
Sure.
And I've been known to overshare myself.
Guilty.
So let's talk a little bit about, how do we balance authenticity with professionalism? You know, if you're trying to really make a strong first impression, how much is too much? And what are some of the things that could be shared?
Yeah, that's such a great point, because I think we can all think of a time where you're like, in a meeting, you join the Zoom meeting a little too early, and someone is talking about the most like graphic and detailed personal life experience, and you're like, how is this? How did I get here? And how is this appropriate setting for this? And I certainly think that you can both bring your whole self to your workplace, let people know who you are, share the little extracurricular things you're doing that are going to require you to leave work early sometimes. A kid's soccer game, you know, I have trivia night with my friends. It's something I don't like to give up. Like, those little things I think are worth sharing.
Yeah.
But I think not sharing a life-changing moment the moment it happens is really important. Like, I had a really big, we've talked about this, life change happen where my partner has been going through a lot of different health challenges and life changes. And I thought, what is the best way to communicate this to my team? It's certainly not the moment I find out, crying in my office, freaking out. It's taking a pause, thinking about how it's going to impact my work, and sharing that with people in that way. This is what's happening to me. Here's what I think I can do still. Here's the time off I'm going to need. And hoping, you know, let me know who I need to talk to make this work. I think there's a way to let people in while also remembering maybe some people are your personal friends outside of work, but most of the time, a lot of these people are technically my superiors. And it's not, you know, I need to think about navigating that. I'm also someone's superior. I have a legal assistant who I am her direct boss. And that feels awkward to navigate when you grow to like people. But there's got to be some level of, let me share this in a way that's also respectful to them, because they don't need to know every terrible graphic detail about this. They just need to know, how is it impacting us at work, and how are we going to keep this going? And I think finding a way to pause, take a deep breath, and then share is far better than spewing immediately.
I think it goes back to reading the room. Yeah. You know, taking a look at it, because every team is different. In fact, when there's a new member joining, like yourself coming onto a team, it changes the dynamic of the team. Right. And to be able to, going back to your active listening portion, to be able to listen and see what other folks are comfortable sharing, and being able to, I don't want to say mirror that, because I don't want to lose some authenticity, but being able to find the appropriate level of what people are comfortable with.
Sure. And that might look different. Like you said, for every group, I share different details, for example, with my direct practice group than I did with the executive committee that was voting on time off. And that's okay. Nobody needs to, it's up to you to determine what people need to know. And if you say personal life challenge or something going on, let people, you know, if you don't have to immediately share every detail of that. Sure. Let people ask it if needed.
And I think, you know, we're talking about first impressions in there. Knowing the right tone, being able to read the room is a soft skill. It's not something that everybody has, but it's also something that you have to practice in order to get better. I'll own, you know, completely in my career over time, learning the right amount of level of what to share in my personal life. Sure. And not, I've made, you know, missteps in the past, not necessarily in oversharing something that I shouldn't, but having it take time away from something that should be accomplished. Sure. Right. And so it's interesting to sit back and think about, okay, I want to be me. I want to be authentically me. They've hired me for a reason.
Yep.
Kind of recapping some of these. They've hired me for a reason. I want to be authentically me, and I want to be productive and fit with the team.
Yep.
Right. And if you can marry those three things, that first impression, that first couple weeks can really start to roll, and you can build a lot of progress in your profession. Now, I loved earlier you said you thought of yourself as an introvert. I share this with you as well.
Really?
I'm going to open up. People are very surprised to hear this because when we talk, my extrovertism, if that's a word, I don't know.
Sure.
It's a podcast. We can make up words. My extrovertism is a learned, I will admit, it's a fully learned trait. It's something that I was not comfortable with at the beginning, but started going back and looking at, okay, what makes folks likable, what makes folks interesting. It was not necessarily sharing so much about me, but asking questions of others. And I think, one of the things you talk about with reading the room and small things, I would advise anybody who's wanting to make a really good first impression, think of your career as an investigative journalist or a private eye.
Yeah.
Find out as much as you can about other people or the work and ask 100%. A lot of questions. And that's going to make folks feel much more comfortable coming to you and also more confident in your abilities because they know that you are actively, you're not coming in saying, I'm the best thing in the world.
But it also, I love that you said that. That means so much to people. I know the people in my life who I'd run into them at Meijer or I'd run into them at some event and they remember something about me. You just got engaged, or how's the dog? Something so specific about someone, and actually caring to commit that to memory does set you apart. It's like this person isn't just talking or just, doing the, hey, hi, how are you, Barb? Good, how are you? Interaction. It's like they're remembering some particular detail about me that's meaningful to me. And I think that goes a long way with first impressions.
So I want to shift gears just a little bit.
Sure.
We've talked about kind of the being authentic and being open, and that takes some time. Let's get to the straight first impressions.
Okay.
I want you to go back in your brain, and I want you to think about the first staff meeting or big meeting you had. You were a new attorney. You're at your firm. You're ready to go. What's a small practical step that either you misstepped or that you were very successful in that meeting situation in which you think that you maybe showed confidence and presence in those interactions and left a really good first impression?
I think
I'm going to give you one too, by the way, that you did.
Okay.
So don't worry.
Okay. I think in a work setting in particular, we have a practice group meeting every month, and I had been very limitedly exposed only to the people that were in the Lansing office. My firm is also in Grand Rapids and Southfield. We've got a Holland office. So there was a lot of people that would be in my discipline that I had not met, and I wanted to let them know, hey, I'm here. But it was awkward to do that. Again, I'm the youngest person in that space. I don't want to make the other people I consistently work with think that I don't want to work with them, but I also want to let other people know I'm open to working with them. And so there was a pause, and the practice group leader said, does anybody want to share anything? And it was very simple, but I was like, hey, I'm here. I'm open to work. I'm really excited to get to know everybody and looking forward to it. And that spewed, after standing up to say that, other people were like, I'm also open to work, and I'm also, new and excited to get started. And it's that is so outside of what I would like to do. I'm not the person who is the gunner in law school raising my hand, call on me for this question. I dreaded those moments. But it was this is a time where I need to raise my hand, let people know that I'm here, and do that in a way that's really simple and concise. Hi, literally, I'm here, and that's it. And it paid off tenfold. I went from having kind of a slow ramp up into my work to people appreciated that I took that outreach. And I followed it up afterwards with an email saying it was great to see everybody looking forward to it. So I think it's both that taking the leap to introduce yourself and the follow-up, the thank you notes, the, friendly emails saying thanks for your time, or a friendly reminder that, hey, I'm here. I think that goes the distance for people because everyone in my group is busy. They're all living their lives and being busy attorneys, and I knew I could help. So
I'm sorry I have this evil grin, but as you say that, I was writing down my answer on there, and it's home run. I remember very specifically your first alumni board meeting.
Okay.
You were new to alumni board, and I'm very proud of the fact our alumni board is very diverse.
Yes.
From very different backgrounds, ages, all sorts
Yes.
of diversity in there. And you were a younger alum.
Yep.
On the alumni board, and you came in and we had a brainstorming session, and you had a very specific opinion on a topic. We won't talk about it because it's alumni business, but you had a
Right.
very
Top
specific
secret.
opinion. And the thing that you did differently than most board members or most folks, what made me know that you were going to be an awesome teammate to work with was you followed up. I got an email the next day. I hadn't even had a chance to do the minutes or anything on the board, and you had already followed up the next day with, hey, we were talking about this. After we were done, I thought about it a little bit more, and I know that topic X, I thought this would be a great idea. Here's some reasons why it might not. And
Wow.
even though it wasn't...
Go me.
Even though... and what was impressive about that was, even though it was kind of... It wasn't self-depreciating, and it wasn't, it was, I could tell that you were giving it thought and understanding. And as a board member or a teammate, I knew that I could come to you, like I have many times now since then. I could come to and always get your opinion and know that it was going to be not just a reaction.
Yeah.
It was going to be actually, it was going to be, and also that you were always going to follow up with whatever it was that we were talking about. And
Yeah.
so I think we talk about first impressions, yes, being authentic, being not afraid to speak up, but also reading the room and not sharing too much. I think if we define first impressions as only the first time we meet, it's not really fair. I think the most important thing is the first impression is, are you consistent with what you do? And so the follow-up portion of that was really... sorry, not to compliment you too much here, but that was the thing that I look back and I'm like, okay, this is someone who gets it, who understands how to work with a team and is going to be a productive member. And so therefore I'm going to reach out for things like a podcast and other things that we've worked on, and not be afraid, and also know that you wouldn't be afraid to speak up if it was too much.
Sure.
And so that was always appreciated, and I think encapsulates a lot of what you're saying there about first impressions. Sorry, I'll get off the soapbox, and I don't want to heap too much praise on your way. I'll find something bad here later.
No, I want to interject and praise that I love that you've kind of summarized that. Yeah, we are talking about a first impression, but I do think it is the week, it is the month. It's depending on the interaction. It's very rare that we're going to be as professionals. This is the last time I'm meeting this person. Maybe at like a conference, but for the alumni board, for example, that was our first meeting, but I knew that was a 3-year-long commitment. So I think people need to reframe something our marketing director at Foster Swift always talks about is it takes 7 times to meet somebody for them to trust you. So we've been doing coffee chats to get to know local businesswomen in the area and hopefully grow like the woman's presence essentially in our business and tax group. But like, I know in the back of my mind, this is one interaction. It's going to take 7 times for these people to come back, for them to feel like I'm even a real person and not just doing this for, social outreach or a resume bullet point. And I love that you've said that it really isn't just the one-off time. It takes a long time for people to feel they have an assessed judgment of you. And so I think for the people who have the bad interaction, the coffee spilled meeting moment, it's like that is not all as long as you follow up.
What's one tip or one thing that you think would help those folks? If we're working remotely as a team, what's one way in which I can make sure I'm making a good first impression with them?
I think that follow-up piece that we discussed earlier really is the way to stand out. My fiance is an entirely remote employee for a business out of Virginia. He's never met any of his coworkers. But it's the little attention to detail that can go a long way to make people who you've never even met feel they can trust you. And there are coworkers that I have not, other than at a Christmas social or something, really spent time with in the office to establish some type of repertoire. But it can be a Teams chat that's like, hey, happy birthday. I saw on the portal it's your birthday. It can be something like, you sent out that firm-wide email. I'm available. I can help. Like, let me know what I can do. It's that follow-up piece that I really think has done so much for me. And it also made me stand out to the people who just delete that email, or that look at the portal and go, I'm too busy. Pausing and bringing in donuts for people on a bad Friday after a, crazy transaction closed. I don't know. It's the little things that I find that make it feel so much more human. And I completely acknowledge that remote employees have to take double steps to get there, but I think it's possible. And I think you can still make somebody feel seen and heard virtually. And
I agree with everything you've said there, 100%.
Okay.
I would back up and say there's even one more simpler, easy thing
what do
that
you
you
think?
can do. 3 to 5 minutes. Be on the call 3 to 5 minutes early.
Yeah.
Just be there. Be there, ready to go. I can't tell you how many times, and I have been guilty of this lately, and it's been driving me crazy. Like, if I am stuck in something, I need to make sure that I let the folks know that, hey,
yes,
I am here.
Running late.
You are still very important to me. But if you're working remotely, 3 to 5 minutes before the meeting, just be online, ready to go. Even if you don't small talk, it builds that trust, because if you're the person that they are waiting for to start, you're costing. You don't ever want to be the reason that we are creating inefficiency.
Yeah,
right?
I think that's a great point.
And it's so simple and it's so small. So if you're that type of person who walks in 5 minutes late to a meeting normally, and you think about it,
Why I didn't think about it. Yeah.
You need to stop and say, okay, I'm going to commit that meeting.
Yeah.
That meeting in I've been guilty of it past. I will put in reminders 5 minutes before. You need to be in this meeting.
Yep.
It'll be right on my
Start
schedule.
your walk.
So it gets going. Just because, again, I think of trust and consistency. If you are consistently the person who is late or on there, then folks know how much are you invested in it long term. Sorry, I've simplified it way down.
No,
I think that's
a
just
great
so
thing, and something I don't think about because I'm a perpetually late person. But I really do think
I've never seen you late.
Nick, I was late to this. I was 5 minutes late to this. Lies. But I agree. And anytime that it has mattered in this matters to me. But I've never missed a client meeting. And if something came up, I triple email.
Yeah.
I think that's such a great point.
I just want you to know we're totally leaving that in.
And please.
That you said that.
And please do.
That's awesome.
It's accurate and correct.
All right, Lindsey, we're getting down to the end of it. And we always ask one big question at the end, something that we need you to think about. We've spent a lot of time talking about authenticity. We've talked about different strategies, different communication styles. Yeah. Whether it's working in person in a meeting or on hybrid. I'm gonna make you cut it all out,
okay.
And I want you to think about the alumni out there who's listening to our podcast. If you wanted them to walk away with one big point, the last thing that they absolutely need to remember, what would be your one big piece of advice for alumni when it comes to first impressions?
I think if this was the only piece of the podcast they watched, I would say the number one thing that matters with first impressions is that polished authenticity. It's showing up as yourself and being genuine, whether you're an introvert or an extrovert, and adding a 2.0 version to yourself of that. It's showing up with the very best of yourself, but a true version of yourself, and leaning into that discomfort while still, if you're a jokester, crack a joke. If you're someone who likes deep conversation instead of asking about the weather, do that. And remember that if the first impression isn't great and it continues to not be great, or you're not jiving with somebody when you're fully yourself, maybe that means it's not, the right place for you. So I would say polished authenticity. We can trademark it.
I think you really hit the nail on the head early in our conversation, and it made me think about it all the way through. And the theme, which wasn't intentional, is about, like you just said, the polished authenticity, right? You can't fake it.
Right.
It's not something, a first impression. If you are trying to fake a first impression, you're going to lose consistency. We talked about consistency, right?
Yep.
If you try to give a polished first impression that's not you, you're going to lose any type of trust.
Right.
About that. And so being authentically the best version of yourself from the very beginning. After that, if they don't like you, forget them.
Right. Maybe it's not the right place for you. Exactly.
Right.
And I think it can be taken so personal, but it's like, why do I care so much if these people like me if I don't like those people? You know, if this doesn't feel like a good fit, if this workplace does not feel like home, why am I caring so much about impressing them? But it is both. It's showing up as yourself, but like you said, training yourself to this more polished version. Yeah, I'm not an extrovert, but I know how to show up and appear at least approachable. Yes, I'd rather be in the corner reading a book and not talking to anybody, my scenario, but it's like I really do want to talk to them. I'm just scared. And getting over that hump and training yourself to say, how do I lead with something that isn't scary? What if I start with a joke? What if I ask about their family? Some way to break it down that's still true to you, I think is really possible.
Awesome. Well, Lindsey, I appreciate all the time today. We've had a lot of fun.
Me too.
We always we get into some pretty heady conversations pretty quickly, which I appreciate very much. And I always appreciate your opinions. And I think folks are going to have a great first impression of you after this whole podcast if they haven't worked with you already. So for those of you out there, thank you so much for listening to Cardinals Stand Out in Their Career, the podcast presented by Alumni Relations. Today's guest was Lindsey Mead. We had an amazing time. Be sure to reach out knowing that the Alumni Relations Office has a lot of things available ready for you. We've got some events coming up. We also have all of our benefits listed on our website. So if you haven't checked us out in a little while, please come visit us at svsu.edu/alumni. We hope you have a great day. Do all things wonderful. Make sure you stand. We love it when alumni stand out in our community. And remember, it's a great day to be a Cardinal. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And cut.